What if we could learn from outstanding leaders in business, sports, and education from some of the best voices in corporate America? Lighting the Path is a series of interviews with industry leaders whose stories highlight strategies that build purpose-driven cultures, engage and retain top talent, develop drivers that create high-performance teams, and connect people to the vision of your company. Join us to hear from game-changing, talented leaders whose paths make a difference at work and at home.
You talk about a coach. I want to make sure if somebody's listening to this, they're not tuning out. Well, I'm not a coach. In today's time, as a leader,
Right.
That is the key component that people are looking for in their leaders is, can you coach me to be
Right.
better at my job? Can you coach me to get different and better results?
Absolutely.
And so this thing of as a leader, I want to make sure we hit this thing about unconditional confidence. What are 2 or 3 things that somebody needs to kind of do to be able to recognize whenever they have their confidence is conditional? How do they spin out of that in unconditional confidence? You know what? Hang on a second. I'm going to stop on this because I've got a case study to talk about, and that's you and I were on this call. You and I had to practice unconditional confidence about 45 minutes ago, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Because you and I are technical wizards, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, my motto is be a geek, not a geezer, but I'm mostly a geezer. And I live in constant fear every day of technology. And it's the only way I'll be able to communicate with the world. And every time I get something down, I thought I had it like Zoom changes something. And here I am stuck but there you were, and we kind of noodled our way through it together. It's a perfect example.
It's a perfect example because what happened was when you and I got online, there was something going on within our technology that your voice was sounding kind of like Elmer Fudd on a Quaalude. I mean, just a stretch. I said, I know Stan, and I know he's not medicated today. I mean, that's not the real thing. But I don't know which buttons to push, and I'm trying to coach him on which buttons he should push, and I don't know what instructions to give, and he's trying to figure things out. But we kept focused on, we wanted this event to take place. We wanted this discussion to happen, and we just kept taking steps. And to me, here's what's interesting. When I heard you talk about unconditional confidence, is that I walked away from that with this phrase that I'm using on all of I'm about to brand that on my website. It's called move the ball. Is that as I step into, I ask myself a question every day. In this particular case, we're trying to wrestle with something, unconditional confidence. I'm going to move the ball. What step do I need to take? How do I move the ball? That was one of my takeaways I had from the talk. If you were talking to somebody who's a leader and you want to kind of encourage them to practice unconditional confidence, are there 2 or 3 things that sort of come to mind that you'd offer out to them?
Well, they're in the world of growth. They're the things that are tangible, measurable, and metric. They're management things. And in those instances, you know what to do in their metrics to demonstrate that you got it done. In the world of development, which is what leadership is all about, it's unique to the individual, first of all, and everyone is different in that regard. And the route to get there, the word is called surrender. Now, surrender is a tricky word because a lot of people hear that and they go, give up. No, surrender is chosen discomfort. This is a big deal. I have to try something that I don't like doing. I don't want to do it. I resist it because the human being is homeostatic, meaning we just want to keep things the way they always have been. And so if you use the Zoom example, it took me a while to become facile with Zoom, and I've learned how to do it. And now Zoom throws a curveball at me. Now, what do? I keep pushing the same buttons, getting the same garbled output, and I don't know what to do. And then I get around on the screen. I don't know what button to push. So normally I would just give up. Okay, but so surrender, that's a big, big word. It's the ultimate, pardon me, but spiritual act. And surrender says there's got to be a better way here. I just can't see it. I need some help. It's not someone's going to do it for me. They're going to encourage me to try something different. Fear will enter in, it always does. Then people have to try it. And I've had so many clients go, I say, well, here's your homework, go do this. And they go, I don't know if I can do that or not. And I go, well, you can do it. Obviously, will you do it? Is it worth doing this change thing? Because I won't get into the whole teaching around fear, but it's a huge part of any coaching toolkit. And the illogical right brain, it's called the coward in my brain, will convince me that if I try that thing, I'll probably die. It makes no sense. And you go through a what's at risk process to get the logical brain back in the game, and it will say, try it and see what happens. Now you have to try it in small steps, because the coward will intervene and go, like I've always tried to write. People always said, you need to write. And I go, I can't write, I don't write, I'm a talker. And so if I would set aside 4 hours to write, I know you need a space. I have about 20 books on my shelf on how to write, and they all say the same thing. The key to writing is write.
Yeah, that's
I would
it.
sit down, pen in hand, ready to write, and my cowardly brain would go, nah, you're not going to write a book in an hour. So I would then check my email, get some coffee, and forget it. So I had to surrender. I mean, surrender is an active, there's action in surrender. It's not just quit. It's you have to try something, and it's called chosen discomfort.
Yeah, that's really powerful, because we're wired to run away from discomfort. You know, that's kind of our brain, that we're physiologically, you know, it's the caveman. You know, saber-toothed tiger's coming. You know, it's like it's fight or flight. You know,
Right.
it's like they'd rather flight than fight when in those days. But we don't have saber-toothed tigers today. But what we do have is we have thoughts and stuff and things. This information overload of there's Armageddon is right around the corner. You know, and
So I haven't had a real active coaching practice for money for quite a while. Still have a lot of people that I coach and mentor and help. But I still get an occasional email or text message from an old client from 5 to 10 years ago, and they will say, you know that thing we talked about? I tried it and I didn't die. And I'm just happy to.
Yeah, I love it. I ask my clients this all the time. I say, I want you to get a piece of paper out right now, and I want you to write down for me, what have you not survived? I'm gonna be quiet here. What have you not survived?
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I like to say, isn't it a shame that the older people get, the more afraid they become? That's generally true, when all the experience of our lives should point us in the other way.
Mm-hmm.
Almost none of the things that I feared really happened.
Right. Yeah.
It's a way, it's called transform the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's biblical.
Yeah, you've got this thing about this unconditional confidence that has to do with, from a practical application standpoint, if I'm in sales, is before I pick up the phone and call somebody, you know, that is at a level maybe higher than what I'm comfortable with, is to tell myself in this call, I'm going to have unconditional confidence. You know, before I go into a meeting that I'm really concerned about the outcome, that I start making these stories up in my mind of the way that why somebody would respond to what they're doing, is to, before I walk in the door, say, I'm going to move into this space with unconditional confidence that the outcome is going to be found. Anything else that you think I need to do to be able to process that effectively?
Practice, look within. The language Quinn uses is face your own hypocritical self first.
Yeah.
And what is that? I've had people say, I don't understand that. What does that mean? Let's skip that chapter.
Yeah, you
Because there's
start
an
off with
action.
this. Yeah, you started with this word practice, Stan, which is really important because it's what we're talking about here is a muscle that's been built over the years that we respond to. So we're conditioned to respond to life, because of our experiences and stuff. And so if
Right.
we say that I'm going to go and now practice unconditional confidence, there's a rewiring, doesn't it, that has to take place.
It's called transform the mind. The
Yeah.
mind is wired. I've been teaching for years on the human brain. It's phenomenal. 100 billion neurons in the human brain. It's just astonishing, but it's wired,
Yeah.
and the experiential stuff is hardwired. Most of the things I really learned to control my behavior, I learned when I was about 2 years old. And I learned this is good, this is not good, this will hurt, that won't hurt. I'll get blessed if I do that, I'll get wounded if I do that. And we have like a hardwired, our behavior is what shows up. But what drives our behavior is in the right brain. And we have to learn to understand that part. And it takes time, it takes effort, it takes a guide, call it a coach, a counselor, someone who can help me. Whenever I would do a personality assessment with someone, first thing I would say is, the most important question I can ask myself is, what is it about me? Why do I do the things I do? Why do I do things that work? Why do I do things that don't work? Why do I get along with this person better than that person? So it's an inside job of self-understanding and growth and support so that I can be discerning in the moment about which part of me wants to play and getting uncomfortable and doing the opposite.
That's
But
huge thing.
I don't think, this is the coach's job, I think, to hold up the mirror, to create the dialogue with somebody, to encourage them to go out and do something that's different, that might work. Quick story. One of my clients, big guy, huge executive in an oil company, had some people that worked for him that convinced him he needed a coach. And thank God he had those reporting people who were able to tell him that. So I met him, I did some 360 feedback, and they said, he's a wonderful leader, we love him, he's kind, he's brilliant, but he gets mad in meetings. And we call that Mr. Grumpy. And we all look at each other and we say, well, when Mr. Grumpy shows up, everybody just shuts down. They get afraid.
Yeah.
So I told him that, and he laughed. He said, "Oh, I can see that." And he said, "So what do I do about that?" And I said, "Well, you've got these trusted associates. When you get in that Mr. Grumpy mode and you're not aware of it, let them give you a little signal. Hey, you want to be the boss, not Mr. Grumpy." So that's how it looks in real life. There's this openness to the feedback, this willingness to be better, and these things are never tangible metric. The proof of leadership is in the stories.
Yeah, that's huge, Stan. As I draw a bow around this time, and thank you so much for sharing not only your head but your heart and the way you approach things. That there's never been a more important time and need for effective leadership because of the chaos that's going on in the marketplace and in society. It's needed. And I love this because as leaders, I remember when I took my daughter off to a father-daughter camp in the summertime, thinking that would be great for a teenager, high school. It said, this will be foundational for her, help her really, straighten things out. And, I shouldn't say straighten things out. She was a good kid. I mean, it wasn't a problem, but to anchor some things in. And after a week of being together with her, I found out that I'm the one who had to make changes and adjustments so I could help her. And I think about that as leaders, is that what I'm hearing you say is the importance of really stepping into that place of self-awareness that is a key aspect of starting anything, and to be able to look at recognizing is that if I'm fighting change, if I'm driving change, if I'm responsible for change, I've got to separate it out and look. There's a difference between transactional change, systems, bots,
Right.
bytes, and bits, and transformational change, because the people are choosing to follow us. Research is showing right now in the marketplace today that the best retention tool you can have is people feeling like they're being developed into something bigger and better than where they are right now. And that's what we're talking
Amen.
about, transformational. And I love this concept of being able to move into this space. We're recognizing that where change is uncomfortable, I have to be able to recognize my ability to step into it with an unconditional confidence, and more importantly, encourage the people who are choosing to follow me to create an environment that they can have permission to have unconditional confidence, and help them kind of see that in their journey. And the last thing from a wrap-up standpoint is I love this part about surrender, because you're right. You and I, we're both in Texas, Houston, Texas. This is a cowboy state, right? Right. And the thought of you don't surrender, man. You take one for the team. But I love this part about surrender is surrendering comfort. I'm going to choose discomfort. I'm going to help our people have an environment that will help them be able to process discomfort, because by doing so, that's how they get stronger. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you feel like is kind of a wrap up on your end
Oh,
that you want to
about
anchor in? But
40 hours,
the
40
more
hours
stuff.
worth. But so just to kind of encapsulate that surrender thing. I was asked to coach a man one time. He was a very brilliant doctor, had a high level responsibility, and people around him thought he needed a coach. So we met, and he was, of course, convinced it was a waste of time. So he asked me, so what is this all about? And I said, well, doctor, what I will teach you to do, if you're up for it, is to learn how to surrender. And he said, well, forget that. I never surrender. And my answer is, here's the coach's telling question. I said, well, I hear that. So how's that working for you? Well, he left. I thought, well, that was interesting. He wasn't ready. And it took another major, big hit in his life for him to finally go, okay. And he called me kind of sheepishly and said, all right, I don't know how to surrender. Good. I said, I know how to help you surrender. I have unconditional confidence, because there's always a promise. The coach can look at a client and say, I believe you can do this, you can be that, even if you don't. Now, if you're open to engage, and it's always they can, but will they? So that's the closing thing. What do you want? What are the people that are watching this want to achieve? We're growing, achieving human beings on the planet. There's always more. Ask yourself those questions. And if you want some help, call Mike.
Well, I appreciate that, Stan. If anybody wants to reach out to you, we'll put your contact information in our show notes to be able to if somebody wants to continue this discussion, because I know you're very willing to connect up with people. So I just appreciate your time and the wisdom that you've shared in your learning experiences. Your walk truly is having massive impact on people, and has for literally for decades now. So thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. God bless you.
Thanks for joining us today on Lighting the Path, Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders. If anything in this podcast speaks to you, if I've challenged you, or if you want to spend time digging into this subject a little deeper, or if you disagree with me, reach out. My contact information is on our website, lightingthepath.net, or email me at mike@mikelejeune.com. Also, look for me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect our networks. Keep lighting the path for those who choose to follow you. It's more than a responsibility. It's an honor.